Hello guys, what's up? This is Scher talking. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we'll be discussing two of the new informations we have on the news section of the game. One is a banner, another one is an event, and both are coming from the future. This event here that gives you SS Darque. Darque is from Romancing SaGa Minstrel song. That is the same thing as for Minstrel. You can summon for Minstrel finally. If you know the lore of the game, you know how powerful this guy can be. But let's start discussing with the banner, because the banner is the most important thing right now, but the event is also very impressive because some of the future insights. So the developers are again messing up with the order of the banners. I know why they are doing this. They are doing this because people just keep summoning only for the must-have units. Like, I still see people saying on my YouTube videos that they are waiting for Joe, they are waiting for Matriarch. I know the value of these characters, they are pretty strong indeed. But sometimes, if you are just waiting for those overpowered units, you don't summon for other banners, and the developers want us to summon. And I am expecting a possible buff to at least the Minstrel, since he's the portrait of the banner, and he's already pretty good enough. Well, it will be a hard decision. I don't have the gems, so I'll probably have to skip and force it, because I really like the design of this character. Both the sprite art, but also the skills that you can use with him. Also, we have the Beard, the Light of Hope Albert, also known as Greek God Albert, because of his resemblance to Greek gods. And this version of Albert depends on you having Death Albert or Trials Albert in order to inherit the AoE insta-Q attack. This one has a higher intelligence and also has power charge too, meaning that he can attack with the AoE insta-Q attack 3 times in a row. That leads Albert to become one of the best AoE killers in the game, probably the best in most scenarios. There are other ways to insta-kill, like depending if you have Fuse, you can still use Proton Rocket if you have a row of enemies, but if you don't have row of enemies, Albert is the best one. Even if it's hard to use him because of the intelligence still having a very low value, if you can manage this Albert to work, you have the best fast strategy for farming maps. You have the best fast strategy to farm some events where the enemies are not immune to insta-kill. And that is a very interesting investment, since this Albert will work for a lot of time. Even now in Japan, people still use him. And we also have Aisha and Hawke. Aisha is a slash and heat attacker. We already had a version of Aisha on December, and that was a very good one. Sadly, the banner was not so good. Back in the days, it was Onsen Genie banner, but it was kind of costly. You had to no discount back in the era where most banners had some type of discount, and now we have a new version of Aisha that can bring even more slash and heat damage. Hawke is not so good in my opinion, but well, we have way too many slashers and he fails to bring something real unique. But what about Minstrel? What does he do? We'll be giving a very quick look on all these characters and be discussing then also about the future possible changes to the banner. But before we do that, let's talk about Darque as well. Before we go into now SaGa to discuss, Darque is interesting because he has an S and an SS style that you can get for free. In future, he also has an Ultra Deluxe SS style that's pretty good as well. He's the King of Poison for an SS style. This was a title given to Leonid. Also, Diana can also be very good with Poison. I can also say the same for Princess Ray. But Darque has something very interesting in his kit for Poison. He's a free unity, you know that Poison doesn't really work in most challenge bosses, so that's not game changing. It's just something good to have. And this is a battle against Silver. Silver is a character from Romancing SaGa Minstrel song, and she has a form of a dragon that she can transform. And by farming this, we can get this version of Darque and also an SS rank club called Mellow Pipe. Let's start with Minstrel. The first version of him is the Ultra Deluxe one. Then we will have a New Year's version of him that's also pretty good. This version here is more of a damage dealer. You can see 2 arrows for STR and 1 for agility, but it is also a supportive unit, like I said. Let's give a look on the multipliers. The multipliers are pretty high on 90. He gets a little more with his limited style. Agility is better on the limited one, and also the resistances are changed. The limited one is better on will, and the UDX one is better on endurance. Well, you can use both in different scenarios. With a fast look on his skills, you can see that he's a blunt plus sun attacker. The problem is that we don't need any more blunt, so maybe the sun is the most interesting thing, and he's an AoE attacker. So AoE attacks with the first skill and also with the last one. The problem is that he cannot make a full AoE cycle if he chooses to open with the third skill. Why? It costs 9 BP on you fully awaken, and the first one is 4, so you don't have enough for a third wave skill. You should stick with the first one, I guess. But this guy is mostly for manual, because he will not use the second skill on auto, and it gives morale up and guard up. 2 very interesting buffs that we need to survive in boss fights or in challenges, where it gives you 25% decrease in damage, so you receive 25 less damage from enemies. It also brings the fast property, so that means that he will always go first before the boss attacks, then also the guard up goes first before your character's attack, increasing 25% of their damage. That is a very good volley. It's not as much as, Barbara. Barbara is 50%, is double, but Barbara is only offensive. He's offensive and defensive, and I expect that he will get a buff to himself, just to make him a little better. Yeah, he's an Ultra Deluxe, And for passives, you can see that he has 2 very interesting things. The first one, he recovers HP of all surviving allies. This is something that the future version of Princess White Rose will also have. The value is not so high. You can see the same healing as Ren and Cotton first skills, like 80s, 90s. That's the healing that he will give for the whole squad with a 25% chances. That is for sustained fights where you keep buffing your defense or debuffing the attack for your boss, so this kind of helps. But for bosses where you have a lot of a tricked and he deals very large amounts of damage, this doesn't really help too much. Second passive, he gives 5% of increase on sun and blunt damage. Last one fired up 5, so 20% increase in damage. You can compare him to, well, using AoE with the Perfector Ocelus. Using Mirage Step is a similar result as using this attack that has 2 elements but is blunt instead of slash, just to compare a little the damage potential of the character. Well, and Poet is good because, guard up and morale up can be very helpful. The thing is, he's the only one that's limited from the banner. The other ones will go to Platinum, but some people will try to summon because of his version of Albert. Even though he goes to Platinum, it's good to guarantee, since you can use 3 AoE insta-kill attacks, one after another. Like I said, the intelligence is a little higher on this one, but it's not so much higher, but every little point helps when you try to get a guarantee insta-killing. There's a free volcano coming from story mode, and also stun union. They can help him increase the chances of insta-killing by debuffing the will from your enemies. And by looking on skills, he can heal, he can stun with Heaven on Earth. That's a good attack skill even on this day. And the third skill is a triple S damage that can be opened because of Power Charge 2. It's a pretty powerful attack, and it's a slash and stun. He can be used just like Jen. I think he's faster than Jen. Yeah, way faster than Jen. Depending on the situations, you may prefer to use him, or you can still use both depending on the nuke that you want. And he at least has, 10% increase on sun damage and 15% increase on all times. It's fired up 4 instead of 5, so 25% of max or 15% at all times. But you will probably be using him for either nukes or for insta-kill. But the healing can be useful here and there. And after Albert, the other characters are kind of interesting, but not so much, maybe. Depending on the situation, you may want to use this version of Aisha. She's pretty fast for next wielder, not bad dexterity as well, and very high STR, but not the best one. She's a multi-elemental hitter with 2 skills that comes from slash and heat. The first one is single target, and the second one attacks a row of enemies and is indirect. It's an interesting combination. Sadly, it's 6 BP, so you cannot use this 3 times in a row. but on the same time, it's hard to find a stage with 3 enemies formed in a row. Hyper Hammer is pretty strong, is also double element and triple S damage, not as high as some of their characters, but the damage is still pretty good because this one is only 10 BP, you do not need power charge, so after using this you can cycle better, you just need 10 BP again. If you use Narwhal's Daughter, that means only 3 turns, if you do not, it's usually 4 turns, sometimes 3. She gets more STR by attacking, but it's not a guarantee, it's only 25% chances, and 15% increase by weak attacks, and 15% increase by all time. So 30% when attacking weak targets, and a chance to increase STR, but 25% only. It's not a bad character, and if you have the older version of Aisha that is unseen, that's interesting since she can inherit this AoE attack. Sometimes this version will be better, sometimes the other one will be, but usually this new one will be better most of the time. Yeah, and this is a platinum style, that's pretty funny. The only thing that you really want from this version is the AoE attack, that's pretty cheap, only 4 BP. Or the cycle with 6 BP attack, A power 29 modifier, it's pretty good as well. Just the last one that you will be ignoring from now often most of the time. So now we have this version of Hawke that has way better status distribution. You can already see a lot of endurance here. He also has better dexterity, okay, will, and the other status doesn't really matter that much. Very slow, still 57 multiplier, and the combination of skills could be interesting if he was not for his very bad intelligence. It's a small chance to insta-kill, but a very good power attack. And look here, it uses the second skill awakening, so it can be decreased to 5 BP only. He can attack 3 times in a row with this attack. 25 modifier with a lot of STR will hurt. It's just that it will hardly ever insta-kill because of such a bad intelligence. There's no way to fix this. Then the second one is a very old AoE attack with Mega Hawk, same for Punishing Palm or Sword Ballet. It's not a good thing, you should just stick with the first one. And then we have the third one being a triple S attack. You see, this is the banner for triple S attack, 64 multiplier, only 10 BP, pretty strong for an opener, but again, another slash attacker. And he goes for a very interesting combination of farming. He gets a taunt effect and also 20% buff to his own STR for 4 turns on the beginning of the round. So every new round or wave, call it as you like, he gets more STR and also taunts more. It's okay because he gets very high endurance. He can be used in some formations like Speculation, Rainbow Rangers, Dragon Strike, and even Sigmoid because he can be used in the front. The damage is okay, not only for that, he also has this reduces damage taken when attacked by 50%, only on the start of a round, so 2 of his passives are based on the start of a round, meaning that he's only for farming. You should not be using this guy anywhere else. That's good because some people that are starting the game get this guy will just have a very good character to be used on the front lines, but some veterans will only focus on his open and attack for stages with only 1 or 2 waves, because triple S damage with 64 multiplier without having to rely on power charge is still pretty good. The last one is for the 4, so 15% increase in damage at all times. Remember, 20% increase in STR is better than 15% increase in damage, so he has a very good combination. It's just that he's more reliable for farming than boss fights or anything else. And that is, guys, we have the banner. But then we have to remember something. There is Darque as well. And Darque makes a very interesting impact in the game because of Matriarch. And why? That is because Matriarch can buff agility, STR, endurance, intelligence, but she cannot buff dexterity. By buffing agility, we can avoid mage's attack. If your boss uses a spell, by increasing your agility and debuffing the agility from the boss, you can evade spells, because they also use agility to get accuracy against you. But we didn't have any way to just, well, decrease the dexterity from the boss. Dexterity is used for physical damage. But Darque has this. His S style that's still not in the game. It's not on this event, but later. We have this attack here called Numbness Trust. This attack will give you a dex debuff for 2 BP. That's amazing. It's just like using Onsen Genie that has a 2 BP attack that can debuff dexterity. He still doesn't have the highest intelligence in the world, but it's useful. The freestyle has a lot less intelligence than the Future Premium. You can see 50% multiplier. The Future Premium one, being an Ultra Deluxe version, has a lot more, 70%, so that should be good to use against bosses that uses physical attacks. So you can avoid by debuffing Dex and increasing your agility. That's what you can do with Matriarch. Also with Nawal's daughter and some other characters, like even the newest Red that can buff agility for himself. Free one is not so bad because it's kinda focused on trying to poison with passives. The first one is 25% chance of inflicting poison, just like, you know, Confusion with Fuse, Melee, or also Charm with Vampire Lady. But this time for poison. And he also will poison with 25% chances on the beginning of a round. If your boss has a very low chance of resistance against poison, you can try to retreat and restart the fight till you can get this to land on turn 1. And only 10% increase in damage. So this guy is not for damage, it's just for some gimmick and niche content where you want to inflict poison. The attacks are not so bad per se. This Firecracker is very impressive, but more for Ultra Deluxe Darque. We will only be using Darque for the Dexterity debuff, but then you have to just take something into consideration. This S Darque was only released 2 months after the free Darque, so it may take some time to put him into usage. But I'm just telling you that you should farm Darque to max and not sell his pieces. Get him to level 50, he may be useful for you, even if you skip his Ultra Deluxe version. Okay, let's get back into the start of the page. I think this kinda explains my thoughts about these banners. I think that they will probably buff Minstrel, because we have a lot of other utilities like Mirza, the buff and Nawal's daughter, he has some competition. Otherwise, people will still not summon for him. Well, let's hope they change. We'll be making another video if we have some different, and also a full review on every one of these characters. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please subscribe if you haven't. If you want to support the channel, you have the links here in the description of the video. We see each other on the next one. Bye.